Hi everybody, my name is Sarah. It has been a long time since I came out with the video, but I wanted to share a sit-down video of what it was like growing up without parents. By the way, my name is Sarah, and I am a lifestyle vlogger slash gamer. I do post videos of regular vlogs, not all sit-down videos. And I do post gaming streams, so if any of that interests you, please subscribe. I'd appreciate it. And also like this video and leave any comments down below if you guys have any questions or any kind of relations, and if we connect in a way and we'd like to discuss other things, and that would be something I'd be open to. So where do I start? So I was born March 3rd, 1991. I was born Sarah Ann Morris. My family originated, at least my dad's side, from Oklahoma. So I am a little bit southern, but my mom was from the Southwest, so not totally, kind of a little bit in between. I was brought up Southern Baptist. There is a video on my channel if you would like to hear a little bit about that. I kind of summarized it because there's a lot, and I didn't want like an hour or too long video, so I kind of just summarized it in my head. So if you guys want to go check out what it was like being in a Southern Baptist house, I have a video on that if you want to go click on that. But I was raised Southern Baptist, so Southern Baptist is very conservative. As a kid, my mother, she passed away in 1994. She was not even 30. This can be a trigger warning, and I am going to label this video a little bit of a trigger warning because there is a lot of stuff that's going to trigger people, and I understand that, so I am going to label this properly. My father was the reason for my mom's death. It was very sad, very unfortunate, but you know, who gets to pick their parents? And unfortunately, my mother was an addict. She was an alcohol user, and she was a meth user. So I was born with some little bit of brain damage. I grew up with my dad's mother, and at my age, I didn't have any like dictation over my life. I didn't even really what was going on until maybe about 6 or 7 years old. That's when I started asking about my mother. My grandmother was very, very conservative. Like I said in my Southern Baptist video, that'll give you more perspective of how conservative she was. So I don't really want to get totally into that in this video. I'm more talking about how it was like growing up without parents. So technically, I grew up with one parent, but it was a grandparent. So I know that doesn't count. But at the time, that was pretty much all I had. I have a brother. I have two brothers actually. One I have not met and one I grew up with. And we, the one I grew up with, we share a dad. For the longest time, it was kind of a little bit like, is my brother my blood brother, or is he my stepbrother? It was kind of like that for a while. But I found out me and him are blood related and have the same dad. So me and my brother, we grew up together. But, you know, we were little kids. We didn't really, you know any better. We got along for the most part. But there was some things that happened between me and my brother that I will not discuss in this video because it is not necessary to discuss it. But just say that there was a lot of inappropriateness between me and him. And it was because we were little kids and, you know, he didn't really know what he was doing. I did hold a grudge over that for a very long time, and I've come to realize that we were just kids, and you know, it wasn't intended to hurt me, it wasn't anything like that, but we still have a very, very difficult relationship, and it's very difficult where we rarely ever speak to each other. The last time that I saw my brother was 2012. I have talked to him periodically since then, but we really don't get along that well. He has his own life, I got mine. We, you know, everyone parted ways when my grandmother passed away in 2012. So everybody was just parting ways, and me and my brother just got older, and we just drifted apart. We are, nowadays, we're okay, but, you know, he's not, like, calling me every day and be like, hey, what's up, sister, you know, or, you know, coming over to my house. But there is also some other reasons why we have not gone along. And one main reason is our father. Like I said in the first start of this video, trigger warning again, is that my dad was responsible for my mother's death. So there was some things that my brother did behind my back that I did not like, which was going back to our father, that ruined my life and ruined me and his life to a very high extent. So I felt a little betrayed by my own sibling, and that really sucks, but, you know, is what it is. It happens. I'm still not very too happy about it, but, you know, at the same time, it was his choice. He did what he did, and they both did what they did, and I have held a grudge for well over 15 or so years. So, and by the way, in the background is my air conditioner. It's really hot, so sorry, I can't. I don't really want to turn it off because I'll start sweating. Anyway, to continue on, let's see. So growing up with just one grandparent was very tough. I was pretty much a slave to my grandma. She made me do everything. She made me clean my clothes. She made me make food. She made me make her coffee in the morning. If she didn't get her coffee in the morning, then I would get yelled at. But like I said, I don't want to get too much into that, but growing up with one grandparent was really hard, especially how conservative she was. It was mainly my responsibility, even before age 10, to do everything. And I mean everything. Person who should have been washing my clothes, should have been, you know, pretty much taking care of me, cooking my food, you know. If I didn't cook, I didn't eat. And she wouldn't cook for me at all until I was a certain age. And I think that was like 6 or 7 when I actually initially was forced to do those things. So not having parents around was very, very tough for me. When I grew up, I didn't really know what was going on until maybe about 6 or 7. My grandmother got tired of me asking about where's my mom, where's my dad. I knew where my dad was, but I didn't know what type of person he was and how bad he was at the time. So I was, you know, I was reluctant on, you know, my dad. Like, my grandma didn't really tell me what happened. She just lied and said my mother didn't want me, which that's not very true, because I have other sources that told me that she tried to do everything for me and my brother, but, you know, her being an addict, it was very hard to live with those things. So as a kid, I actually really wasn't as bad mentally as I am nowadays. I'm way worse than when I was a child. I'll get into that in another video of how, you know, like, mental health as an adult with what I suffer from. So I will get that video information together, and then I will post another video. But it was very hard to go to school, and during certain, like, you know, parent-teacher conferences and all that kind of stuff, it was hard to see moms and dads with their kids, and that is very common with people who do not have parents present. Now, mind you, I did have one parent present, but not present in my life per se, like raising me, which was my father. So if there was parent-teacher night, it was pretty much, you know, my grandmother didn't go to parent-teacher night. So that was very it was very hard, because she didn't really want to participate. She only participated in only what she really wanted to participate in and what she had to participate in. So pretty much she only participated in some field trips she'd pay for, getting me school clothes and school supplies. She didn't give me like the crappiest school supplies, but she didn't give me the best. She didn't live on very much money, so it was also kind of like what you get is what you get. I would have new clothes each school year, so I was very grateful for that. I was grateful for having a TV. I was grateful for having a roof over my head. I was grateful for not having to sleep outside, essentially. That was terrible. But growing up, essentially without parents, was very tough. I didn't really have it start affecting me, I think, until like my mid-20s. Because for 6 years, when my dad initially got out, and yes, he did abuse me, unfortunately, but that's another story, and that's a really triggering story, so I'm just gonna say he abused me. I talked to him every week on the phone, Saturday at 7:30 sharp, every time. And I get to pick up the phone, and occasionally my girl would pick up the phone, but then I get to speak to my dad for about 15-20 minutes each Saturday. So we were always gathering around the phone for that. My brother got to be present a few of those times to speak to him. About once a year in the summertime, me, my grandma, my uncle, he would come from Nevada. He lived in Nevada. It was my dad's brother. And he would come up and he would take me, my brother, my grandma, and his girlfriend to go to see my dad. And he lived over in the prison he was over in Eastern Oregon. There was a few of them he went to, but the one that he mainly was stationed at was in Ontario, Oregon, which I found a lot about that place recently. But yeah, every year, during like June or July or so, that we would go there, and it was about a 4 or 5 hour car drive. It was actually pretty long. But we'd go there and visit him, and then we would drive back to Albany area, essentially. So yeah, that's pretty much my story. I really don't know how else to explain how it affected me. But yeah, it was really rough because I didn't have the dad around that I wanted, and nobody ever gets to choose their parents. I'll say that again, they don't. But when my dad was around, it was some good and a lot of bad, unfortunately. It's very hard having, essentially, it's very hard having a parent that's not there, and really hard that, you know, a father sees his daughter as a toy instead of actually stepping up being a parent. And that told me he's got some really bad issues, and he also is very mentally bad issues. He was also a narcissist. Like I said, I don't know much about my dad. I was only around him for 1.5 years out of prison. And of course that was bad because he chose me as his victim for whatever he liked to do. And it was just very unnecessary. I was really excited to have my dad home, and then essentially he blew it. He essentially blew it. There was a few things he did right, but the main thing he did right was tell me what he did to my mother. He told me the truth, and I was only 13. I didn't really know how to process that. I didn't quite understand it, but his mother, my grandma, said, "No, you're gonna have to go explain to your daughter what you did to her mother." And so he did, and he sat me on the bed and said, you know, what he did and what happened. And I don't know if he really seemed sorry for it looking back at it, but maybe. I mean, I don't know, because if he really felt sorry for what he did and he wanted to stay out of trouble, he wouldn't have made me his victim out of whatever pleasures that he wanted. So he wasn't really too much of a person that was a beating type, but he had a history of it. If he got mad at me, he wouldn't even try and hit me. He only yelled at me once, which is really odd. But if I didn't really do what he said, the 1.5 years he was home, then I probably would have got beat. But I didn't. which is a good thing. But a year and a half home for him when I was 13, 14 years old, I don't know, I have kind of a little mixed feelings from it. Like I said, there was a lot of good and a lot of bad. But he was a dad, which he'd take me to school. He would take me clothes shopping, and sometimes we'd just go to the mall, and he'd be like, "Hey, Sarah, you want to go to the mall?" But, I think just to get out of the house. And we'd go do that. We did a bunch of numerous things that was not bad. He always told me to look both ways crossing the street. I had I don't know if it was a stomach infection or I got food poisoning, but I woke up one day and I just started throwing up just randomly. And I was like, what the fuck? And I yelled for my dad, and I said, "Dad, I'm just throwing up everywhere." And he was like, "Okay, well, we're gonna go to the emergency room." Or actually, we went to a clinic that was like 5 minutes from us, but it wasn't the hospital, so it wasn't the emergency room essentially. But he took me there, and they said, "You need to take her to the emergency room." So the thing he did right, he did not mess with me. He took care of me, and I want to say the good things about him as well, and then the bad things, obviously I already stated. But he was a dad, and he put me in the car. He actually had to carry me to the car because I was really sick. But took me to the hospital and said, "Hey, my daughter I believe she has food poisoning or something." And so they took me back, and he sat with me there the whole time. It was really nice to actually have my dad like take me somewhere and essentially take care of me like he's supposed to. He's my dad, that's what he's supposed to do. And it was nice just having somebody else, and especially my own dad, take care of me like that. So you're at the hospital essentially, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, and he was calling my grandma, which was his mom, and just saying, "Oh, Sarah's okay," and all that. And she stayed up until like 11 o'clock midnight, and we didn't get back until 11:30 or 12 in the morning. And she was sitting up waiting, and she was freaking out because I was really sick. And every time that I was really sick, she took care of me as well. Even though, mainly I was the one doing stuff for her, she did take care of me when I was sick, so I will give her that one. But yeah, me and my dad we were alright. I mean, yeah, it was a very inappropriate relationship on his part, and I was only 13 or 14, so it's not like I can be blamed for that, but I do blame myself for a lot of things from that, even though you guys are sitting here and be like, "You shouldn't blame yourself for anything, it wasn't your fault." You're right, but as a person who was abused, they're going to think they were the problem and they deserved it and all that, and in my mind, I know that, but at the same time, my other part of my mind likes to play tricks on me, and that's mainly what PTSD does to somebody. And like I said, everything I went through as a child didn't start affecting me until my mid-20s, which I'd say about 24 or 25, it started really affecting me, and it started affecting me like physically, and it started affecting me in general. And the hardest part, and this will be my last statement, the hardest part was finding out that my dad gave me a disease that cannot be cured. I did have a cervical cancer scare when I was about 14 or 15 years old. Yeah, I know, hella young, right? But like I said, I was abused by him, and you guys can probably guess what I'm talking about if he gave me a disease, and yes, he did. So I tested 3 times positively for cervical cancer. They were about ready to take immediate action. They wondered why I did not have an exam after, I was the victim of my father. And I said, "Well, nobody gave me one." And they said, "Well, you have human papillomavirus." And I was like, "What's that?" And they explained it to me, and I was like, "Is it curable?" And they said, "No, it's not." And then they said, "Oh, and you also tested positive 3 times for cervical cancer." And I was just like, I'm only 14 at the time, guys. 14, 15, actually it was, yeah, 15, 16 years old, I found that out. And then after 3 times, I was fine. I was clear. I wasn't clear of HPV. I was clear of cancer, so that was good. So years went along. I had doctors telling me that I need to get the HPV series shot, and I said, okay. So I did. And, you know, I thought, oh, I'm safe. So just about, this is running, just about, I think about 5 years ago, I started having my HPV become active again. And active means that it could be a moderate, high, or mild risk of developing cancer. So if you're high risk HPV, you could develop it in a certain amount of years, depending on how long you've been have active high risk HPV. So that's what I have. And I found out recently I am high risk, and I had to have a surgery to take out my left ovary, and there is a video on that as well for the recovery and everything, and me explaining before the surgery. But I indeed had a biopsy taken for cancer because she saw some abnormal cells in my exam, and she's like, yeah, you have some pretty concerning cells. And I was like, I know, I've been high risk HPV for like 5 years. And she's like, oh. And I don't know how long it can go high risk without turning into cancer. So she took a biopsy, and obviously the reaction on my face, it was negative. So I was very thankful, because that was on edge until they got my biopsy results. And yes, biopsy means they take skin. And oh boy, did that hurt. I was not under the knife. It was in the clinic. I didn't know what to expect, but it was not very fun. It hurt. It felt like you were having like period cramps. It wasn't like so bad, but it was like feeling like a woman should know this, but having period cramps. That's what it felt like. And so as of right now, I am going in once a year to get screened, and trying to stay away from stress, cigarette smoke, eat the right things, because your girl does not want to end up with cancer. I'm only 30. Like, you know, that's just way too young, but you know, God controls, you know, what happens to us and everything. And honestly, there's such treatment now that if I did have it, I would have plenty of options, but they have to catch it early, so that's the thing. So I'm hoping that works out. But yeah, that is the end of my video, guys. My last thing I was talking about was pretty much the biggest thing that came out of me not having parents, and how a parent betrayed me. And just betrayed a bunch of people's lives as well, because I wasn't the only one that he betrayed. So yeah, I appreciate you guys watching this video. I will label this as a trigger warning, because obviously if you watch this video all the way through and can still hear my audio because my notifications were going off, I really hope you guys like and subscribe. And yeah, I appreciate you guys watching, and take care. Bye.